Hello, I'm Nathan Martin with the Divine Pollination Hive and the UnityProcess.com. In today's video, I'm going to be addressing the conflict at Standing Rock, North Dakota, along with the Access Pipeline and the protesters who are protesting it. I'll take a look at it from a macro perspective, but also from a micro-psychological perspective. If this is something that interests you, stay tuned. Okay, so we're going to start off by looking at what exactly is the Dakota Access Pipeline protests. Just going to Wikipedia, and I know this is a biased source, they're always going to slant towards the powers that be and not towards the people. So let's take a look at this. The Dakota Access Pipeline protests, also known by hashtags such as NoDAPL, are a grassroots movement that began in the spring of 2016 in reaction to the proposed construction of Energy Transfer Partners' Dakota Access Pipeline. The proposed pipeline would run from the Bakken oil fields in western North Dakota to southern Illinois, crossing beneath the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, as well as part of Lake near Standing Rock Indian Reservation. In April, a Standing Rock Sioux elder established a camp as a center for cultural preservation and spiritual resistance to the pipeline. Over the summer, the camp grew to thousands of people. So we're not going to look at and read all of this, but basically, let's see. Supposedly, in July, the Army Corps of Engineers approved the water crossing permits for Dakota Access Pipeline under a fast-track option, and construction of the disputed section of pipeline continued. They also said that it was going to be safe. Of course, that's the military. They would never, ever, side with the government, would they? Especially the leadership, right? While the protests have drawn international attention and have been said to be reshaping the national conversation for any environmental project that would cross Native American land, there was limited mainstream media coverage of the events in the United States until early September. At that time, construction workers bulldozed a section of land that liberal historic preservation officers had documented as a historic sacred site. When protesters entered the area, security workers used attack dogs, which bit at least 5 of the protesters. The incident was filmed and viewed by several million people on YouTube and other social media. In late October, armed soldiers and police with riot gear and military equipment cleared an encampment that was directly in the proposed pipeline's path. I'm not going to go into the details of this more, but I am going to go into my feelings on it, what we can do to actually work through this issue. Aline and I have done quite a bit of emotional processing and reflecting on the conflict at Standing Rock, North Dakota, and have some thoughts, conclusions, and questions that our work has raised. First of all, there is no denying that this is an emotionally charged conflict. But why is it being allowed to continue and fester as long as it has? There are a lot of people, groups, and authorities that could stop this if they actually wanted to, and at the very least, they could address it, but they purposefully remain silent. It's like the elephant in the room that nobody really wants to talk about. So let's start by looking at the macrocosm. At first glance, it is obvious that this is a classic Hegelian Dialectic event, where the pipeline is the problem, the water protectors and protesters are the reaction to the problem. This means that there is already a prepackaged solution waiting to be revealed whenever things get to a boiling point and appears to get out of hand. This is a solution that they had in mind before they manufactured the problem in the first place, and will appear as some sort of compromise that makes the protesters happy, or at least gives them some semblance of relief from the standoff. If such a compromise is indeed their manipulative agenda, then it could undoubtedly give the protesters a semblance of power and control for having victoriously defeated the evil pipeline, while giving the hidden manipulators the actual synthesis/solution that they were angling for all along. I'm going to quote something from Christopher William Ruffote, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correct. The Hegelian Dialectic, named after German philosophy professor Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, is a dialectical method of operation by which a predestined conclusion can be arrived at by manipulating a target population via the induction into their collective conscious of a synthetic catalyst, and subsequently harnessing and redirecting their predictable reaction to suit the aims of the manipulators. It is a technique used to coerce those whom it is used against to provoke an initial reaction and eventually a desired result, which the victim seems to be a natural and logical choice, but which in point of fact is an orchestrated series of events designed to manufacture a pre-planned outcome. It is a process of synthesis which is used to steer public opinion into accepting that which previously would have been unacceptable, but which now seems to be the only reasonable alternative. While the proposed solution appears by all respects to be born out of logic and reason, logic has little to do with the equation, as a Hegelian dialectic relies heavily in prompting an emotional response and outcry from the target subjects to alleviate a perceived crisis, oftentimes by enacting authoritarian measures conveniently brought forward to save the day." End quote. The horrible ways in which the protesters are being treated is most definitely being allowed, and even carefully nurtured, as to get the most out of this manufactured crisis. They're trying to create an emotional reaction. In this way, the public, the water protectors, and more are being played to further an unspecified goal. The other possibility is that the unseen manipulators are attempting to provoke tensions even further and into an even bigger dialectic that pulls the entire United States into a civil war. After all, there is little legal justification that can be used to justify the brutal tactics that the mercenaries are using on the Standing Rock demonstrators. It could only be a matter of time until full-scale violence erupts as pushback against the brutality. And even if it's not a civil war type thing, it is going to push tensions further in that direction, or at least against the government. And they really want this. They want people to oppose the government. The Hegelian dialectic is usually employed by intentionally engineering a false dilemma, also known as a false dichotomy, or black and white thinking, to manipulate the people towards a desired outcome. And I'm going to quote Wikipedia. "A false dilemma is a type of informal fallacy that involves a situation in which only limited alternatives are considered, when in fact there is at least one additional option. The opposite of this fallacy is argument to moderation. The options may be a position that is between two extremes, such as where there are shades of gray, or may be completely different alternatives. A false dilemma can arise intentionally when a fallacy is used in an attempt to force a choice or outcome." And that's what they are talking about there, is a Hegelian dialectic. So they're using a false dilemma where another option exists, or they didn't have to do this option, but they're creating this problem in the first place to get people to fight against each other so that they can then synthesize into a third option that they really want. America's two-party political system is an example of a false dilemma fallacy being intentionally used to manipulate the masses. In this way, the conflict at Standing Rock is an engineered false dilemma where only two options are being considered when multiple other options are being overlooked. For example, removing oneself from the false dilemma through processing of one's emotions, or finding some other way to consciously remove oneself from the emotionally charged drama is possible. So let's look at this from the microcosm now. From a psychological, esoteric, and hermetic standpoint, though, there are susceptibilities that are being touched on that are very real. The manipulators are intentionally sticking their finger in an open wound and causing the right pain at the right time from the right wounds, just to get the very specific reactions that they are getting from both the water protectors and those who are resonating with and supporting them. If the water protectors did not have the emotional wounds and susceptibilities that they do, they would not be a resonant match for the way in which this dialectical drama is playing out. What wounds, susceptibilities, and emotional attachments are being provoked, and what is a solution to working through them? Here are a few of the things that Aline and I have found from our own process as we have worked through our feelings and how we resonated with the victims of police brutality at Standing Rock, as well as those who are protecting the sacred lands. First off, this is a classic Karpman's drama triangle, with the persecutor, victim, and rescuer all working together. The police are the persecutor roles. The Native Americans and the land itself are playing the victim role. And lastly, the water protectors are the rescuer roles who come in to save the day. Each role has an emotional attachment to playing their part in the drama, and because of such, are responsible for actually causing the drama to perpetuate. Let's look at this picture. This is taken from the website solutionsforresilience.com by Patricia Morgan. You have the drama triangle. You have the persecutor or the bully. This is your fault. You're not okay, but I am, so do what I tell you. They're critical. They keep the victim down. They're driven by anger or resentment. They're rigid, bossy, domineering. You have the savior on the other side, the rescuer. You need my help. You're not okay, but I am nice and I will fix you. They provide support when it doesn't want to, so they're a reluctant hero. They feel guilty and anxious if they don't rescue. They feel connected when the victim is dependent on them. Their rescuing creates feeling of better than, at least more capable of, than the victim. They often expect to fail in rescue mission, but they try anyways. Then you have the victim, and they are helpless. Poor me, I give up. I'm not okay and everybody else is. They feel oppressed, hopeless, ashamed, powerless, incapable, and misunderstood. They seek to hook up with a rescuer to validate the above feelings. They refuse to make decisions, solve problems, get professional help, or do self-care or change. So they're at the root of this whole triangle. So we move around the drama triangle until one of us moves out and into a clear and healthy communication pattern. Be the one. Be the change you want in the conversation. So like Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. In this drawing, saying be the one, be the change you want in the conversation. In this situation, the victims and heroes are very closely connected to one another, where a person can be the rescuer one moment and made the victim in the next. In many ways, the rescuer role is really just defending their own inner victim that they do not want to deal with emotionally. They attempt to use actions to protect their inner victim, rather than processing their core emotional reasons which would transform their inner victim into the survivor-thriver. As mentioned in an earlier video linked here, the heroes get a reward from their brain's reward center for avoiding their painful inner victim, and this is accomplished through projecting their inner victim out onto the victims they are defending, and then playing the role of the hero in this dialectical drama. The persecutors also receive a reward for projecting their victim out onto others whom they victimize, both the heroes and the victims, and thus they too get to avoid their pain. Lastly, the victims gain attention and feel connected to their heroes for feeling worthy of being protected from the evil villains. They also find a way out of their pain and get the endorphin rewards they desire. From a psychological perspective, this whole drama is one big orgy of punishment and rewards, and a way to escape from facing the self even more. The only way to truly deal with it all is through emotional process work and allowing the pain to serve as a catalyst for transformation, rather than an escape into the addictive cycle. In psychology, it is known that there are reasons why people stay within Karpman's drama triangle, and these reasons are called the emotional payoff. An emotional payoff is where a person receives something that they desire and want from staying enmeshed and hooked into a drama cycle. For example, the rescuer receives a payoff for saving victims. They feel both valuable and connected with those they save, while they also get to pretend that they are no longer a victim at heart. They feel above their victims and the villains that they battle. They get to feel like they are cause in the world, since they are able to be cause of their victim's safety and freedom. The victim. They receive a payoff for feeling worthy enough to be saved, and for getting to avoid taking personal responsibility for their thoughts and feelings. And the villain. They receive a payoff for feeling like they are above their victims. They feel that they are valuable and approved of by those they are serving in the hierarchy, and that they get to transfer their suppressed shame, guilt, anger, and fear onto those they are harming. They get to feel like they are cause in the world, since they are able to be cause over others. As you can see, there are many reasons why we get sucked into the dualistic conflicts, and they mostly involve our desire to escape ourselves, to escape our feelings of powerlessness, and mostly to escape our own victim mindset. Rather than deal with our inner victim mentality, we project it out onto others, and we expect others to come and save us, to prove their value and our worth. Since we as a collective are unable, or is it unwilling, to deal with our victim mentality, we will then be susceptible to external forces that have pooled their resources to be the biggest villain of them all. With their knowledge of our emotional payoffs, they can manipulate our escapism to their advantage and herd us into an agenda and endgame that many of us will be unable to escape. Our only hope is to reclaim our connection to causality and become cause of our lives from within. We either take responsibility of cause and effect in our lives, or there are those who will exploit our avoidance of causality. It's either do emotional process work to become psychologically differentiated and empowered, or get fenced into their ultimate synthesis and solution, and be absorbed in their collective and enmeshed unity. The choice is ours. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I have arrived, at least not as of the recording of this video, but I am conscious enough to realize that my emotions are getting played, and I refuse to enter into their engineered crisis as a participant. Instead, I'll continue to reflect on the emotions that I experience when I view photos, read articles, and watch videos of the drama as it plays out. I'll continue to monitor the ways in which I am trying to escape my victim mentality through wanting to be the hero, and ask myself why until I fully understand the thought patterns that are causing it. This form of activism, what we term Gandhi Groups, is the most powerful of all, as it follows the model that Gandhi established when he said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." Are you willing to stand up and be that change? Or are you going to avoid yourself even more by going into Karpman's drama triangle at Standing Rock or any other false dilemmas that follow? Again, we get to choose. How are we going to take our power back? Are we going to try to do it by resisting physically? Or are we going to do it by becoming cause from within our lives, for taking responsibility for our thoughts, feelings, and actions? We can either do that from within or be stuck in this externalized triangle. Which do you choose? If you enjoyed this video, please click like. If you're not already a subscriber and would like to keep up to date on my videos, please subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments section below. I'm Nathan Martin with the Divine Pollination Hive and the UnityProcess.com. Be safe, be sovereign, be well.